Let's
Again,
do it
run it
again.
back, run
Run
it
it
back.
back. You got it.
Hi, hi, this is Katrina, Executive Director with Peace Economy Project, and I'm here today with Hallie and Josette with Raising Daughters. Hi, or how are you two doing
Oh,
today?
doing
Doing
great.
so good.
I am so professional. Anyway, uh, I am so excited that the two of you will be performing for us at our Peace Economy Project fundraiser, which is a concert that's happening on 9/11 this year. Uh, I wanted to ask you first, how did Raising Daughters come together and what drew you to making music as a duo?
Hallie and I met doing theater back in 2019 as students at this theater company in Waterford, Connecticut called the Eugene O'Neill Theater. And
Mm.
Hallie was in like a directing track, and I was in a performing track. But Hallie wrote this play with music that I was in, and that was kind of like the blossoming of our first collaboration. Come to a year later, September 2020, everything is shut down except for the school that's doing in person programming. So Hallie and I went to work for that program this time instead as being students. And we just started writing together. We were in this kind of like very locked down, secluded space near the Long Island Sound and all these historic homes around us, and just wrote a ton and kind of were like, oh, this is, we aren't really doing theater, we're making music now.
Yeah.
And we fast forward to living in New York, and we gigged all over town. And last March, we made the big move to Nashville, Tennessee to really commit to the project, Raising Daughters, and, and do it full time. We come from a theater background, so theater is always inherent, but we definitely both kind of, we always say, like, if you told us 5 years ago that we were going to be living in Nashville as musicians, we'd be like, you're silly. There's no way. But yeah, we're doing it. So that's kind of like a bit of our
Origin
origin
story.
story. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Wow.
what made us come together, I think, was the play that Joe was in that I had written was about young women growing up, sort of coming of age and young, like girlhood, the experience of girlhood and femmehood that we all kind of grow into differently. And that was kind of the seed of the name, right? And why we decided to write kind of what we knew. Like, we wrote about growing up in different places. I'm from Kentucky, Josette is from Colorado, um, and our different experiences as young women and also as adult women, um, in a world that's always shifting, right? And always wants us to have a different thought about what that means.
Oh, great. Yeah. Rochelle and I, who's also here, Rochelle is our senior fellow
Hello.
with Peace Economy Project. Uh, she's hanging out with me as my number two person.
Love
Uh,
it.
she'll likely jump in when she feels like it with questions. So yeah, Rochelle, feel free to jump in with questions. We're just having a conversation among daughters, apparently, about raising
Wow.
daughters.
That's our favorite thing to do.
Yes.
And I'm really interested, and I'm going off on a tangent that you were at the Eugene O'Neill Theater. That's sort of a well-known place for theater, isn't it?
Yes, we were studying at the National Theater Institute, which is a part of the Eugene O'Neill Theater Center, and we were of course students, like Josette said, and then became sort of like interns there um, later on.
Mhm. It's most known for, like, in the summer they do like a big new play festival, and so it's
Yeah,
like a big launch pad for a lot of writers who come, and they get to like do a really big staged reading, and a lot of those plays have since gone on to Broadway and things like that.
yeah.
But we were
Right.
just we were just mere students. But it's a really wonderful place. Yeah.
That's amazing. And now I'm going back to what we're actually here to talk about. And raising daughters and how does the idea of your name, Raising Daughters, interact with the work that you create, and how the what does that truly mean to you in your work?
I think we hear a lot about, you know, I think for me personally, I can't speak for Joe, but I think there's a lot of like, oh, daughters are so hard. It's always harder to raise daughters. It's more complicated, it's more layered. And for me, I was always curious, like, why? Why is it? And because in some ways it is. And as someone who comes from a long line of very strong women, and I come from a pretty matriarchal family, like, what are the stories and the ideas that I'm inheriting? The ideas about womanhood, about what it means to be a daughter, what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a mother. What does that all look like? And what are the ways that it doesn't really work for me?
Mm.
What new forms am I creating? I think that for me
Yeah.
that was a big part of it. And seeing, my mother struggle with what she inherited, um, and so on.
That's interesting.
I mean, that's the whole. She just said her whole mission, so that's what I know she's saying she's speaking for herself. I was like, well, that's the
I mean,
mission.
I don't want to like speak for Joe, but I feel like that's also kind of where Joe's at as well.
Yeah. No, it's yeah. It's a lot about lineage. It's a lot about coming of age and yeah, what you said, what we're choosing for ourselves, especially as we come into like our adulthood at
Yeah.
this point. Yeah.
Yeah, there is a lot that goes into that idea of being a daughter and raising a daughter. And I'm, I can see myself pushing that into uh, being as well when people would ask me about the difference because for the longest time, I now have two daughters, but the longest time I had one daughter and one son. And I'd say, boys break your furniture, girls break your heart.
Yeah.
And and I and there is that sort of aspect where I felt like my son, I could just shout things at him and he just go on his way. But my daughter was always aware of intricacies. And is it is that a male female thing, or maybe it was just who they were as individuals? And why attribute that to her being a female? Like she had one Mother's Day, she had the idea to buy me slippers. And she had saved her money, and she asked my husband to take her, and and he brought my son with him as well. And so she bought these slippers, and then my my son was like, I don't know, I'll get her slippers too. And and it was like, oh my gosh, we now I get two pairs of slippers on Mother's Day. And which one am I wearing more? And
Yeah.
I had my daughter
Yeah. Yeah.
my daughter was very keenly aware of which slippers I had on each day. It was like, don't you like the gray ones better than the pink ones? Because you always said you weren't a pink person. You're a gray,
Right,
and I
right,
was just like, I don't know. I just put them on, So
right.
from that point on, I had to be aware of those slippers, and and that's the thing I think with raising daughters is that you have to be keenly aware of the person that you're raising to make sure that they get that validation of their efforts as human beings, and then yell at your husband for saying, why on earth did you do this to me?
Right. Right.
Why did you say, oh yeah, let's get two pairs of slippers, after my daughter sat there and thought very seriously about these slippers.
Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's real.
That's real.
That's real. Yeah. I mean, Joe grew up with a younger brother. I
Hmm.
grew up with an older sister. So we have different perspectives
Yeah.
on all of that, which is great, for the music. I come from a really big family of women. Um, and Joe's is probably a little bit more balanced.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, So that's it's nice that we can both bring we have very very different experiences of growing up and what like siblings mean to us, I
Yeah.
think, in a lot of ways.
And your music, it's described as harmony rich indie folk, right? And how does that develop into your vocal and acoustic sound, this experience that the two of you bring into your work?
Yeah, everything we write comes from like the lyrics, and like what we're trying, to say. I think when Hallie and I first started singing together, it we harmonized pretty quickly together, kind of like instinctually. Um, and that was something that we were like, I mean, there's early videos of us like writing a song and us like harmonizing like just kind of like on command and being kind of like really surprised, and also just knowing that it sounded good and that our voices pair. A lot of people think we're sisters by blood because of the way that we have, people call it like a twin harmony.
Hmm.
But we aren't related, but our voices kind of found each other, and then through, I think, that initial connection and kind of like folk style, like guitar and finger picking and like acoustic sound, we like write lyrics to also shape our voices, and like with harmony in mind, of like knowing like a really strong part of the song is gonna have like layers to it, because it is a layered like idea that we're talking about. um so yeah, I always love getting the compliment of like, people always, they're like, are you twins, are you sisters, who's older, and I'm like, no, it's like I almost feel like it's like a magic trick, but it's like we
Hmm.
simply are just like made, like our voices just like are finding each other. um so yeah, that's my tea.
Yeah, I initially thought that you were sisters as
Yeah.
well. Uh,
Yeah, it goes back
and
and forth between sisters. Everyone either thinks we're
Yes.
sisters or lovers.
Yeah.
It's and neither are true.
Neither
So
are true. Neither are true. Just
it
besties.
really just, yeah, just besties, but
Yeah.
it literally oscillates between those.
It's funny that people process female friendships in that way, that there must be some, either you're both sisters of one patriarchal father, or you must be romantically rejecting the patriarchy to
Right,
have
exactly.
Yes.
have a connection.
It always has
It's
to have
always
relation to
centered
that.
on the male ego.
Yes.
That's exactly what
100%.
it is. And it's like, it's frustrating. And I think that that's also part of our work, is that we really do focus. We've written a lot about each other as well as friends, and the importance of female friendship for us.
Yeah.
And friendship in general, just feeling like platonic love is, I mean, it's so cheesy, but like platonic love is just as, holds just as much weight, right, as romantic.
Yeah.
And that also leads a lot of our work.
Yeah.
yeah, I think that platonic love has to be the most intense love I've ever felt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It because there's nothing being asked. There
right.
there's not, it's just you are you just love the person. There is no, like, again, going back to the hierarchy of, with a like a man woman love, there's this expectation that you have to be, you're like performing for this male gaze. But
Right.
with platonic love, you're just you.
Yeah.
And that there's just a beautiful thing to that. Uh, in thinking about your work in creation, I hear harmony quite a bit from the two of you. Uh, how does that play into creating of work? It sounds like there really isn't a division of labor. It's a community of labor.
Yeah, I would say we never, there are songs that I will write completely on my own, and there are songs that
Mhm.
Jo will write completely on her own, but they're always brought, we always bring them to one another, as a proposal, right? Almost like we're proposing this song for the group. Um, and because both of us are molding that song and singing it into it, right? Breathing life into it, it really is our song. We don't necessarily feel the need to divide credit in terms of that way. There are songs that we write separately. There are songs that we write in the same room together. There are songs that Joe will write one aspect of and then I will finish, and vice versa. So it kind of depends on the song. Uh, Writing separately is definitely what we typically do. Writing together is in the same room at the same time is challenging. I definitely have more of a playwright's brain in terms of linear thinking and storyline. Not necessarily linear, but just the storytelling aspect of it. I get a little bit more hung up on. Whereas Joe, I think, kind of goes to the
I bop around.
well, Joe, like, she's more for the auditory experience, I think. In that we both have different focuses in the middle of writing something.
Yeah.
Um, and they end up coming together, right? And I think that that's what's great about our collaboration is that we both have different strengths, and in the process of writing, we're both focused on kind of different things. But then once the song kind of comes together, we know when something's right and when something isn't right.
Is it right? Yeah.
I feel like we're always on the same page about that's not what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Or, when
Or
it's
if it
being
is,
recorded,
yeah.
or, we're like, okay, that's it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what's really nice about having a partnership, in that we have different perspectives, but we understand the song in a similar way.
So, what sort of themes would you say you're working on right now?
Oof, gosh.
Well, we're in the middle of making an album, sorta.
Well, no, we are.
We are.
Not sort of. We are literally, we just raised about
like
$25,000 to
Yeah.
make an album.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's our first full length, fully produced album, and our first release since moving to Nashville.
Yeah.
So a lot has changed, and a lot hasn't. Themes that come up for me when we're talking about this album now is a big thing we've discussed is perception. Kind of like what Rochelle was saying about the relationship to the patriarchy and the perception of that and the
Yeah.
male ego, I think is a really big part of what we're wrestling with. Being perceived as women, as artists, as partners. That is, and also coming from two different experiences, romantic experience. I'm identify mostly straight,
And I'm gay.
Just gay. And so I think we're also wrestling with those different perceptions, right? In our relationships to romance and to men and to other women. So yeah, perception in general, I
Yeah.
think, is a really big, the feeling of being perceived. And also I think a big headline is like feeling like you're being seen before you're ready.
Yeah, there's a few songs on there that like are kind of like hint towards like our like a past self, and like in like an experience of like growing up with like those things. And also like this move for us was like the biggest move I've ever done in my life. Like uprooting like all this, everything that we were doing in New York to here, and knowing a few people, but like really like just knowing each other. Like, there's songs about like, that going through that with someone, especially like a platonic partner. Like it's a very like it was really hard, but it was also like amazing at the same time. And there's a few songs about that transition too on the album. But
yeah, just relying on one another.
Yeah.
And how sometimes it doesn't always work.
yeah
So yeah, a lot about perception, a lot about transitions,
yeah
and how our relationship has failed and succeeded.
yeah
Oh, interesting.
What are some of your either academic, intellectual, or cultural influences, like artists or thinkers that you are influenced by?
Um, Sally Mann is a photographer that I really enjoy. She kind of does what I perceive to be sort of like a Southern Gothic kind of work, which is what I typically did as a playwright. I would say Toni Morrison is definitely a big one
Hmm.
for both of us as well. Um, Mary Oliver is a big influence. Rebecca Solnit has been an influence. Writer Rebecca Solnit. I don't know if you have any other
But yeah, some music really. I
inspiration.
mean, I grew up on a lot of like my dad was like a big like Grateful Dead like jam person, so I grew up like on a lot of that music. But my mom, um, played a lot of like Dave Matthews, like Indigo Girls, like a lot of like '90s like country.
Yeah.
Um, as of now, like a lot of my influences, especially being in Nashville, like I'm really inspired by Esther Rose, Angela Autumn, Lizzie No, people in the scene here who like we wanted to be surrounded by, who are doing things, and are writing songs that we're like, oh God, I wish I wrote that, like, and it's so inspiring, especially now being like, seeing those people like out and about, versus like on a screen all the way in New York. It changes the inspiration a little bit. It feels like it's something tangible, which has
Yeah.
been really cool.
And being closer to a community that is Americana, has a really strong Americana vibe, which is what we're making, right? And being, I grew up with like Southern uh, songwriters. I grew up with like Alison Krauss, and I also grew up with like '90s chick rockers like Liz Phair, and also people like Patty Griffin. Those were big people for me.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of, we
Lucinda Williams.
definitely,
Yeah,
huh?
Lucinda Williams.
Lucinda Williams,
Yeah.
yes. We definitely lean on a '90s sound a
Sound.
little bit. It bring it back to like sort of the nostalgia of growing up, um, but hopefully having a little bit of a different, fresh take on it. It's kind of the
Oh,
fun.
that's great. I raised my daughter in that 90s sound and she fell in love with Drake. So I'm glad it worked for you.
Hey, listen,
It comes back around.
all comes back around.
I promise.
Oh, yeah, I tried so hard. It's like
Tried so hard.
I took her to Tori Amos at 5 years
Oh,
old.
oh
Oh
my
wow.
gosh.
She
Wow.
saw Beck at 3.
Wow.
Wow, that's great.
That's
She,
awesome.
yeah, I can still hear her saying, Soy un purpador.
Oh my
I'm a
gosh.
loser, baby. So
That's
why don't you kill me?
that's
That's
so
so cute.
cute. Oh
But
my
no,
God, that's awesome.
it's all about Drake now.
It's
Now
all
it's all
about
about
Drake.
Drake.
I get
Now it's all about Drake.
it.
Anyway, thinking about your work and as a poet, I I am in touch a lot with vulnerability. And and I often say, if you're not frightened to see it on the page, you haven't gone far enough. So how do you hit that point as songwriters? What is your vulnerability level in your take on accessing that vulnerability?
Hmm.
It's a great question.
It's it's difficult, and often I think a lot of songwriters write from a place of sad, like when they're sad
Yeah.
or angry. It's not necessarily like that for me, um, but sometimes it comes out of that. I would say for me, it's almost like I go back to writing in college or like writing plays as well. And I went to Sarah Lawrence College, and it's a lot of writing. And there was always I just kept writing and writing and writing until I like struck the thing. And that is the feeling that I'm always kind of going after. I had a writing teacher call it the
Mm.
punctum of the piece, the thing that like sticks you. And I think for me, it's just a process of digging until I can't anymore, and
Yeah.
we're just writing till I find the thing. Um, in terms of like vulnerability and sharing that, it can be for me, at least for me, it can be difficult to um, share some of these songs in front of people that might be hurt by them. If you're sharing a song about your experience growing up and you're sharing that in front of your family,
Hmm.
your parents, that can be difficult.
Mm.
But I think it's important to be honest and to take the risk most of the time. Sometimes I'm too scared, but a lot of the time you just have to say it. And it's nice that we can lean on one another to feel like, okay, we're not alone. Um, we're not alone in saying this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think like I mean the first thing I thought of after you asked that question, I like thought of like the early some of like the early stuff we were doing in New York, like some of the early gigs, some of the first shows with um like a band, and yes it was new, and like you, there's a little bit sort of that imposter syndrome, but I remember feeling like although like I knew it like felt right, like I felt really vulnerable, I and expect but like I grew up doing theater. I grew up like like wanting to be on a stage, like but like then when you're doing something and you're sharing and you're saying your own words versus like words from a script of someone else, or it's different. And there was a moment like I think one of our like first few gigs we were doing, some of these songs, and like I think that like really registering that like, oh, this like I am feeling this way because like these are my own words and these like are my own experiences, and like I like in choosing to own that, right? Choosing to like step forward with it and share it. Was definitely like something that like I hadn't registered before, because especially doing theater, like I was writing some stuff on my own, like but most of the time I was doing, you know other things, like writing, like saying things that other people had written, with integrity, but they also weren't my words, right? So
Mhm.
yeah.
So, so I'm going back to your harmony again. I'm really intrigued by it. When and the vulnerability. So, what would you say are things that you sing about or write about or even talk about, because you have one another? You mentioned that fear, um, Hallie, about, it's comforting to have Josette because Josette is, singing about the same experiences. What experiences are those that you write about or sing about that give you that extra bump?
I think, I mean, honestly, a lot of the things that come to mind first off the top of my head are like my relationships, romantic relationships, and like first kind of like stepping into like sexual experience. I think that that is really difficult for me to just put on a stage, right?
Yeah.
Um, and knowing that Josette is with me, like um, almost validating that with me at the same time has been very helpful and honestly essential. Writing plays, like when I would see my plays go up, it was the most nerve wracking, vulnerable thing ever. And there were moments where you do feel really, really exposed. Um, and it is really difficult to do that alone. I give a lot of credit to the solo artists that do it alone. Um, but for me, it's been like essential to know that like Josette is also like holding the torch for me
Yeah.
at the same time with those kinds of things.
Yeah. And it goes into like even like when we're like crafting a song and like choosing like parts where there are like harmonies and stuff, like on specific lyrics or on the chorus or the verse, like it's deliberate when we choose to sing together and when we don't. And like in hard parts of the song, like we either sing that together or it is like a solo moment, and then like we build it back up together. So it's always kind of like pushing each other up kind of the ladder. And that's in that is for a deliberate reason, when especially when we choose like where we sing and when we don't. um it's to have that moment of like feeling exposed, and then to like know that like someone else is like right behind you, like it's yeah, I want it to feel like that vocally. Yeah.
I'm curious your answer in the question. I answered first, sorry.
What?
Like, what are like the vulnerable,
Oh, like
like,
I did like the themes and stuff.
yeah, I mean, like, what's difficult for you to,
Yeah, I mean, I like, I in parts that it's been hard to share like some of our moments have like been like when we like are performing like in a lot of room where there's like a lot of men and I'm like singing about my like queer experience and like dating women and just like feeling immediately judged even though they aren't saying anything, but it's just a lot of eyes and I'm just like, oh, no one like this a question comes to mind. It's like, is this it getting across? Like, is this worth sharing? um, or am I just exposing myself further? But then I look at Hallie like during the verse, and then it's like I know that she's in it with me, and I'm sharing it for her and with her as well. Like it's really for each other in moments that I'm feeling that way. But it's a lot about like my queerness and like also just being perceived by a certain way and not wanting a weird comment afterward,
which happens a lot.
Which happens a lot. Like, and I'm not. It's not that that's gonna go away. It's about just like learning to like move through it, and 100%. But I feel so lucky that like when I'm feeling that way, I have someone I can look to, and who like knows like in my body language that I'm feeling that way, and like sings with me, and sings, and like is with me, and like I would never be like do this alone, like not at all. Like, no way. But I'm like, like Hallie said, like shout out to those who do.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That sounds beautiful. It sounds like a, beautiful relationship. And let's think about politics and beyond, like, we go into identity politics, but also let's think about, war and political division that we have today and social uncertainty. How do you see music playing a role in things like that?
I think it probably, I mean, there's a lot of layers probably to that, but I mean, the first thing I think of, I mean, it's, cliche in a lot of ways, but community is a big part of that. There are songs that bring people together. Mm-hmm. Often I feel like I'm not doing enough. And then I'm like, yeah, what is like the song gonna really do? But then you hear people coming together. They're like, oh, I grew up with that song. Oh, I grew up with that song. Oh, I grew up with that song. And it's a big force of finding common ground.
Yeah.
And I think I sometimes feel down because I'm like, well, it's not big enough.
Yeah.
But I think a song can really, it can really bring people together, and it also can divide people really quickly. But I think often songwriting and hearing a song and feeling like, oh wow, like that's exactly it.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Hearing an artist sing something like that and put it into a song, into music, and an experience of it, almost like a world of it. You're like, oh wait, that's exactly what I was feeling.
Yeah.
Or that's exactly, I was frustrated about that thing, or that, it's an amazing moment of like recognizing yourself in another. And I think that music has an incredible ability to do that.
Yeah. I think it's just a different lens, especially with all like the short form like content and like everything on social media and like all the news. Like I really enjoy when I see an artist like question, those things that are going on, and like, having that same experience of Hallie being like, oh, like I either understand it more, or like I'm seeing it differently, or it's giving you like a reaction to like jump into it, and like and register and relate. I think people, hear things to like talk about something, and to hear someone sing, like those are two different parts of like how you hear, and like in your actual like science of that, the science of the eardrum and everything. No, like it's like
no,
you listen to things differently when they're being sung to you, and or certain words stick out, and like and that's why we need to continue, doing that.
Yeah,
you know. Um, it's important. It's important work, for real.
For real.
Yeah.
And so in thinking about that, do you see creating music as a form of peace building or community building?
It's a great question as well.
I
I
think
think
so.
so. I mean, I think, you know, what we're inherently doing and presenting um, is an opinion. It's a rebellion
Hmm.
against what we've been taught. Um, and so in that way, it is a statement.
Hmm.
Um, but I also think that so in that way, I don't know if it's like necessarily peace building, but I think it is peace building in the way that someone recognizes their experience in what Joe is saying or in what I'm saying. Um, there are moments where we write something and it means something completely different to someone else.
Hmm.
And I actually really appreciate those moments because it's an expansion of the song and an expansion of um, our relationship, I
Yeah.
guess, to that person.
Yeah.
We wrote a song about one another and all kind of our friendship going through different periods of life, and we've had a lot of couples come up to us. Or people that have lost their spouse, or people who just got married, or and really related to that
Hmm.
song. And so
Oh,
it's
right.
interesting how different things can be interpreted for different
Yeah.
people. And I think in that way, yeah, I guess it is
Peace building.
peace building.
Yeah.
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 So the concert that you are appearing in is on September 11th in St. Louis. It's called Unbroken Songs for Peace and Change. What does unbroken mean to you?
It's a great question too.
I feel like I've been going for. I'm gonna let you take the first.
I think Unbroken, like, especially in a form of like the gathering, of the concert, like it's a moment to reflect. I think Unbroken can mean that you're, instead of like, choosing or like deciding to like break or choosing to like hold on to it. I think it's an active thing, being like unbroken. I don't think it's like um, a passive term. um, I definitely think it's like a choice to
Yeah.
sink into. um, yeah, it's a moment to kind of like unite, I think, like to not separate. Especially like with music and people, gathering, especially on September 11th. It gives everyone just like a moment to be together, right?
Yeah, I like what you're saying about it being a choice.
Yeah.
A choice to stay active, to stay engaged,
Yeah.
um, to be with others, right?
Hmm.
And unbroken, I think for me, I think of resilience,
Yeah.
um, and resilience can be exhausting, right? But it's something that we choose um, to not be seen as unbroken, but always like mending.
Mending. Yeah, that's great. That's a great word. Mending.
And thinking about resilience, how do you acknowledge pain while offering listeners resilience or hope?
Hmm.
I think just by continuing to be honest, like especially if something is painful and hard or emotional, trying to showcase every corner of it. Um, is also like a part of being, resilient. Is also the hardness and the painful is like is all the pain, and it. I think it feeds into it.
Yeah, I think being curious about one's experience and your reaction to it, um, just questioning and being curious about an experience, I think, is always helpful.
Yeah.
And it's helpful when we write, as well, coming from a place of just not trying to nail down the thing, but
Yeah.
just ask questions to it, is always a place. And we were taught that in theater as well, right? Um, Acknowledging experience doesn't necessarily mean I have to understand every single bit about it, but I need to be curious about
Yeah.
how I'm feeling and my response to it and others' response to it.
Do you know what songs you're going to be sharing on the September 11th?
We're still figuring that out.
Yeah.
Um, we definitely want to share songs from the new album and, kind of what we're working on right now and the
Mm-hmm.
place that we're in right now. But we also want to, probably sing some songs that everyone maybe can participate in,
Yeah.
that people can really feel seen in, and often that, maybe some covers
Some
of other
covers.
people that we really admire.
Yeah.
Um, Knowing that people can, I think it's people can join in a way in a song they don't know, of course, but knowing that maybe people can recognize something might be nice.
What do you hope they take away from your performance?
I hope they think about, especially like we're going to be up there as a duo, just like other people like in their life, either it be like family or someone that they love or someone that they miss or you know I think there's like a power of two, with us up there, and like a lot of people approach us afterward with that, and I hope that people just either just take away like a memory of someone in their life or someone that they came with, or someone that they miss, um, and maybe recognize that a little bit in what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I think people always talk about just us interacting on stage is, um, nice to see, just us looking at each other.
Yeah.
And I think that often, in the age of our phones and all that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's so cliche, but it's true. It's like people don't really look at each other, uh, anymore in the way that maybe we used to or want them to.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that people can really look at one another, look at the people around them, um, and I always hope that someone has that reaction of like, oh, that's exactly it. I
Yeah.
hope that someone has that moment of feeling like maybe we put a feeling or experience into a world or into a song that feels right to them.
Yeah.
I like that. Uh, you you talk about how you met in 2019, and that's around the time of the pandemic, and so much has happened since then. It's been such a turbulent time. Uh, and I'm guessing that, and you've moved from Connecticut to New York to Tennessee. And these are differing political environments as well. So how has that shaped your ideas about peace, justice, social responsibility? Have you changed as an artist, or how you've developed as an artist?
I mean, living in different places, growing up in Kentucky, then moving up to New York. I think, I credit a lot of the ways in which I questioned things and the ways I was curious about things or ways I saw things, and maybe it was like, wait, why do I see it like that? To my college experience, um, that was really essential to me, and I think theater in general, attracts a community of people that are very open,
Yeah.
very opinionated, and, vocal, and ask a lot of questions. And so I think theater also has helped me to, open up to learn about different people, to be different people, and, I appreciate that I've been, we've now being in Tennessee, but we've also lived in the Northeast,
Yeah.
knowing sort of both
Both
cultures
cultures, yeah.
in a lot of ways. And there are definitely, ways that I miss New York and connect more with the Northeast culture for sure in a lot of ways. Um, but I'm grateful to have been in both worlds, I guess.
Yeah. I definitely, being from Colorado and living in New York and being surrounded with with folks who are in theater, it gives you a lot of different, moments to like meet other people with like different life experiences. There's a big, I mean, I found my like queerness through that, and I like came out young because I was like in theater and felt like so supported. Um, at the same time, like moving to Tennessee was like definitely a little bit of an eye opener. I think there's a wonderful, wonderful community here of musicians and artists that are questioning things and trying to make strides and steps. But at the same time, like I mean, we both work in restaurants as well, and that's its own like force of labor, and seeing kind of certain things kind of happen that are different than kind of like how they're navigated in New York and in Colorado. It's yeah, it can feel a little jarring. It's like, oh, like you did just say that out loud, or like, oh, like
We're not on the same
we're not on the
page.
same page, like very very clearly, like
Yeah.
um
And to be fair, I
yeah,
mean, it happens
it
everywhere,
happens
right?
everywhere.
But I think
Yeah,
it can be a little bit more stark politically when you're going from
yeah,
the north to the south.
yeah.
But it happens everywhere,
So, what sort of responsibility do you think musicians have to address events that are happening around them?
I think
I think
musicians and artists have a responsibility to stay engaged,
yeah,
um, to question and to be honest
yeah.
about their experience of it. Um, and yeah, I
And
would say
yeah.
that's the biggest thing. I know one person or artist can solve any of these
Hmm.
things, but to just be open, to be engaged, and to be honest in and of itself is an act.
Yeah. I also like, if I see like another fellow artist like make strides and steps to like question something or, write a song like to support, just to support, like other other folks, especially if they're, like writing something political or, like sharing something, like to like hold space for that and to also like support them,
Yeah,
you know.
uplift others,
Yeah.
um, uplift people that don't necessarily always get the spotlight, right?
Yeah.
And also not sacrificing your values, I think, in certain situations, but standing strong in what you believe, I think, is having like being integral
Yeah.
about and intentional about how you're moving um, through the industry side of this career
Yeah.
is very important.
Rochelle, do you have anything?
Let's see. I guess I'm a little curious about how the current political climate has informed the trajectory of your art, specifically decisions like the overturning of Roe v. Wade and assaults on transgender, and by implication, other types of queer representation, and the general anti-feminist energy of this administration, and most obviously the commander-in-chief and his connection, even the revelation of the Epstein files. As far as the feminist context of this moment, how has that informed or changed your evolution?
I think there is always like a feeling of, you know, I think for me personally, I feel like there's always this like fear of being too much, being too loud, being alienating certain people right, alienating certain audience members that we're trying to gain more of an audience, we're trying to gain more of a following,
Mm-hmm.
right? But at the end of the day, we're talking about stuff that some people are not going to understand or not going to agree with.
Yeah.
And that's I don't know how to describe that feeling, but
Of like knowing that people,
yeah, like knowing you're performing and there are people out in the crowd
that don't accept,
that don't accept what you're
yeah.
saying or angry about what you're saying,
Yeah.
right? And the sort of like stomach dropping feeling of like saying what a song is about and knowing that it's gonna be polarizing to an audience is challenging, but it also makes me want to push it more.
Yeah.
I think I think a lot of how I'm processing it is I have a lot of anger and a lot of um, grief, and I think narrowing in on certain images of my life or experiences of my life and writing towards that has been helpful,
Yeah.
And also feels like an act of resistance against all the BS in general. I don't know
Yeah.
how are you
I
feeling?
remember like talking like before, especially before we moved down to Tennessee, like about everything and like Planned Parenthood and just kind of everything, and feeling, definitely like a little scared, of course, as a lot of folks are. Um, but at the same time, I think, Hallie, what you mentioned about like writing that song that's like, someone's not going to ever understand is like kind of empowering, and
or they don't want to
or they
understand
don't
it.
want to is also that, it's like they won't. Yeah, it's both those things, the choice to not. And yeah, I remember, like especially like a few of these songs that we've written that are kind of about like I have this song in particular that's like about like kind of like identifying like, when I was first, queer and kind of seeing things differently and being attracted to different things and like recognizing like the privilege in that and like my upbringing, and but also, feeling so perceived at the same time. I think kind of goes into that, and it's caused me to ask more questions, not only like about myself but like my other queer friends, about like when that moment was for them and how they navigated through it, and if they've ever written a song about it, and like what their curiosity is towards it. It's causing me to ask more questions based off my own, you know
And there are
experience.
difficulties, I think, in our experience as two women writing, because of what we were saying earlier. Everyone wants to say, oh, they're lovers or they're sisters or they're this or that, and being put in a box of who we are in relationship to
Each other.
their ego and
Oh, yeah.
each other and
Yeah.
all of that stuff. It's not easy, and it causes us to really come together in order to stay strong against those kinds of perceptions and things being put on top of us.
Yeah.
Have you noticed, I'm gonna turn it around. Have you noticed a shift in people's attitudes toward you, given the change in political dynamics in the States? Either more supportive or more suspicious?
I would say more supportive, I guess.
I would say overall we're lucky in that it's been more supportive.
Yeah.
We also try to when we know we're not going to gel with someone, or there's opportunities to work with people, right, that maybe be further ahead or quote unquote more successful, but when we know that we're being perceived in a way or looked at in a way that we don't agree with,
Yeah.
we choose to not go down that path.
Yeah.
I think so. Part of that is our own sort of vetting,
Yeah.
of the people that we choose
Our
to surround
vetting
ourselves.
process. Yeah.
But I also think, in general, we're lucky enough to have been feeling more support. I think.
Yeah. Yeah. More supportive.
In what we're doing.
Vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems like the silver lining of the current moment we find ourselves in. While it is polarizing, there is a certain kind of reaction of support among people who know that what's happening is wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's coming out stronger, and that is the silver lining.
Yeah.
That's the positive.
And so, for someone encountering Raising Daughters for the first time at our Unbroken concert on September 11th, how would you describe the experience that you hope to create?
If someone encounters us for the first time, I hope to cultivate, you know, a rich, a rich sound, a rich harmonious sound. I hope people, identify like our connection to each other and just a lot of love that like we bring to each other first, you know? Um, yeah, yeah, and I guess like we've talked this, but like walking away with either that moment of like, oh, that's it, or just like, you know, like thinking of like of someone in their life, yeah, who they like love just as much as they love each other, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I hope that I want to bring a strong and like kind and relatable energy.
yeah,
I think that that's always where we want to be, and we always want to feel like we're not taking ourselves too seriously, but we're taking the work and the moment seriously.
seriously.
That sounds amazing. Is there anything either or both of you want to share before we close it out? You've been so nice to give us about an hour here, so I want to be conscious of your time and respectful of that.
I just want to say thank you. These
Yeah.
have been great questions. It's been an awesome discussion.
Will you guys both be there on the 11th? Will we see you?
I will be there. Rochelle, I don't know. We'll have to see. I'm not as good a fundraiser as you two are as far as getting money together to get people to St. Louis, but we will see if Rochelle can be there as well, but I definitely will be there.
I can't wait.
Okay, amazing.
Amazing.
Thank you all for
Yes.
your like really awesome and intentional questions, and for really seeing us and being curious about what we do. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. And I hope to see everyone on September 11th.
Sounds good.
Sounds great. Looking
Yeah.
forward to it.